The buzz of the university's first day back was palpable, a mix of nerves and excitement filling the air. Jean maneuvered through the crowds with a sense of purpose that belied her newcomer status. Clutching her bag close, she found her way to the literature class where Professor Billy was already setting up. "All right, everyone. Let's settle down." Billy's voice was calm yet carried across the room, a lighthouse guiding ships in the night. Jean found a seat at the back, her eyes scanning the syllabus laid out on her desk. It was then their eyes met, a brief, electric moment that felt like a scene out of one of the novels they were about to dissect. As the weeks passed, Jean's contributions to class discussions became the highlight of Billy's teaching day. Her insights were sharp, her questions probing deeper than most. One day, after a particularly lively debate on the nuances of Shakespeare's characters, Billy couldn't hold back his curiosity any longer. "Jean, can I have a word?" he asked as the class dispersed. Jean approached, her heart rate picking up. "Yes, Professor. I just wanted to say your points today were very insightful. It's rare to see such passion in first-year students," Billy said, his tone genuine. "Thank you, sir. I just love the material," I guess Jean replied, a shy smile playing on her lips. "There's a seminar I'm hosting next week on Shakespeare's tragedies. I think you'd find it interesting. Would you like to come?" Billy offered, hoping she didn't notice the slight break in his usually steady voice. Jean's eyes lit up. "I'd love to. Thank you for thinking of me." As she walked away, Billy couldn't help but feel a spark of something he hadn't felt in a long time. Jean, on the other hand, felt a flutter in her stomach. It wasn't just the invitation that excited her, it was the recognition, the feeling of being seen for the first time in a long while. That night, as Jean sat in her modest room, surrounded by books and papers, she couldn't shake off the day's events. Talking to Professor Billy felt like a bridge to the world she dreamt of, a world far from the one she came from, where neglect and poverty were constant companions. "Maybe, just maybe, this is my chance," she whispered to herself, a mix of hope and determination in her voice. Little did she know, Billy was thinking along similar lines, his mind racing with thoughts of Jean's potential and the unexpected connection he felt. Their shared journey was just beginning, a flicker of light in the darkness promising to lead them down a path neither could have anticipated. In the weeks that followed, Jean's presence in Billy's literature class became something of a focal point for both of them. It wasn't just her academic prowess that caught Billy's attention, it was her perspective, so vastly different from his other students, that intrigued him. One afternoon, as autumn leaves painted the campus in hues of orange and red, Jean lingered after class. She was ostensibly there to discuss an assignment, but both knew these moments were about more than just academics. "Professor Billy, I've been thinking about what you said on narrative structures. Do you really think the author always has a subconscious message, or could it sometimes just be a story?" Jean asked, her notebook forgotten in front of her. Billy leaned back against his desk, a smile playing on his lips. "Jean, you're asking the big questions now. It's what makes literature so fascinating. There's never one right answer. But yes, I believe even the simplest stories carry the weight of their creator's world. What do you think?" Jean paused, considering. "I guess I've always seen stories as escapes. It's nice to think they could mean more, that our interpretations can give them new life." The conversation drifted from academic theories to personal beliefs, each exchange pulling them closer into a shared bubble of mutual respect and understanding. As the semester progressed, their interactions became the highlight of Jean's university life. Billy, too, found himself looking forward to their discussions, each one a reminder of why he'd fallen in love with teaching in the first place. One day, Billy took a step beyond the academic. "Jean, you've brought a lot to this class. Have you ever considered joining the debate team? I think you'd be excellent, and it could be a great opportunity for you." Jean bit her lip, a mix of surprise and apprehension in her eyes. "I don't know, Professor. I mean, it sounds amazing, but I'm not sure I'm, good enough." Billy shook his head, his belief in her clear. "Jean, trust me, you are. And it's not just about debating, it's about finding a community, a place where you belong. I've seen how you engage, how you think. You'd bring a lot to the team." Jean looked down, then back up at Billy, a newfound determination in her gaze. "Okay, I'll do it. If you really think I can contribute, I'll give it a try." As Jean walked out of the classroom, a new spring in her step, Billy couldn't help but feel proud. He saw in her a spark, one that reminded him of his younger self, full of potential and hungry for change. Their paths, so unlikely to cross in any other walk of life, had intertwined, creating a bond built on intellectual curiosity and a shared desire to challenge the status quo. As the leaves continued to fall, marking the passage of time, Jean and Billy unknowingly stepped closer to a threshold that would challenge the very foundation of their relationship. The semester wore on, bringing with it a chill that seeped through the university's ancient walls. Jean and Billy's connection deepened, transcending the student-teacher dynamic. They found themselves discussing life's bigger questions, often after the rest of the class had left, their conversations lingering like the autumn mist. One crisp November evening, as they were wrapping up one of their discussions, Billy, hesitating for a moment, ventured into uncharted territory. "Jean, I've been meaning to ask. What drives you? I mean, you have a passion and perspective that's unique." Jean paused, the question catching her off guard. She looked away, her voice softer when she finally spoke. "Well, it's probably because of where I come from. Not many get out of there, you know. Education. This scholarship. It's my shot at something different." Billy nodded, understanding dawning on him. "Would you mind if I asked where there is? I'm just curious about what shapes such a strong, insightful person." Jean hesitated, then shared the name of her hometown, a place known more for its struggles than its successes. Billy's heart skipped a beat. It was a place he knew all too well, a chapter of his life he'd tried to forget. "Really?" I spent some time there, a long time ago." Small world, Billy said, trying to mask the sudden turmoil inside him. Jean's interest piqued. "You did? That place doesn't seem like it would attract a professor." Billy laughed nervously. "I wasn't always a professor. We all have our paths, our stories." Their conversation drifted to other topics, but Billy couldn't shake off the unease. That night he lay awake, memories of his youth flooding back. He remembered a girl he'd known back then, one very much like Jean in spirit and resilience. The possibility, however slim, that Jean could be connected to his past actions haunted him. The next day, Billy decided he needed to know more. He approached Jean after class, trying to sound casual. "Jean, about yesterday you mentioned where you're from. It's going to sound strange, but do you know your mother's name? I mean, I might have known her." Jean's eyebrows rose in surprise. "My mum? Her name's Maria. Why, did you know her?" Billy felt a chill run down his spine. Maria. The name echoed in his mind, a ghost from the past he'd never fully exorcised. Maria. Yeah, I might have. It was a long time ago. This is going to sound even stranger, but do you know who your father is? Jean's expression turned cold, a mixture of confusion and defensiveness setting in. "No, I never knew him. My mum, well, she never talks about him. Why are you asking me this?" Billy realized he'd ventured too far into personal territory, his academic curiosity turning into a personal quest that might unravel the very fabric of their relationship. "I'm sorry, Jean. I didn't mean to pry. It's just a coincidence that caught me off guard." But the seed of doubt had been planted. Billy couldn't ignore the nagging thought that his past might be intertwined with Jean's in a way he had never anticipated. The implications were staggering, and he knew he had to tread carefully, both for Jean's sake and his own. Their relationship, once marked by intellectual camaraderie and budding trust, now stood on the precipice of a revelation that could change everything. Billy was faced with a choice: pursue the truth at the risk of losing Jean, or bury his suspicions and preserve the sanctuary they had found in each other. In the days that followed their unsettling conversation, a palpable tension hung between Jean and Billy. Their once effortless dialogue had become strained, each interaction tinged with an undercurrent of unspoken questions and doubts. Billy wrestled with his thoughts, the possibility that Jean could be his daughter consuming him. He found himself caught in a torrent of memories and what-ifs, each more troubling than the last. It was during a restless night that he resolved to confront the issue head-on, for better or worse. Jean, can we talk? Outside of class, Billy texted her, his fingers hesitating over the send button before finally pressing down. Jean, for her part, had sensed the shift in their dynamic. Billy's questions about her family had opened a Pandora's box of emotions she usually kept tightly sealed. Her curiosity piqued, she agreed to meet, though her response was guarded. They chose a quiet corner of the campus, a place where the autumn leaves whispered secrets to those who passed by. Jean arrived first, her posture tense, a stark contrast to her usual open demeanor. Billy took a deep breath before starting. Jean, I'm sorry for the questions the other day. It's just, I knew someone from your town, a long time ago. Her name was Maria. When you mentioned your mum's name and where you're from, it got me thinking. Jean's eyes narrowed slightly, her guard up. Thinking about what? Why does it matter? It's hard to explain. I guess I'm just trying to make sense of a coincidence. But it's been bothering me and I felt you should know. Billy stumbled over his words, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Jean sighed, a mix of frustration and curiosity. So what? You think you might know my mum? My dad? What are you trying to say, Billy? Billy paused, the gravity of his next words hanging heavily in the air. I'm saying that years ago I had a relationship with someone named Maria in your hometown. It was a long time ago, but when you told me about your background, I couldn't help but wonder. About the timing, about the possibility. Jean's expression shifted from confusion to shock, her voice barely a whisper. You think you could be my father? The question hung between them, a chasm that threatened to swallow up the rapport they'd built. Billy could see the tumult of emotions playing across Jean's face: anger, disbelief, a hint of fear. I don't know. But the thought has crossed my mind and I can't in good conscience ignore it, Billy admitted, his own turmoil mirrored in Jean's eyes. Jean stood up, her chair scraping against the ground. This is insane. You're my professor. How can you even suggest something like that? Billy reached out, an instinctive gesture to bridge the gap between them, but Jean stepped back. I need some time to think about this, she said, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions she was feeling. As Jean walked away, the distance between them felt like more than just physical space. It was a rift forged by revelations neither of them was prepared for. Billy watched her go, his heart heavy with the burden of uncertainty and the fear that he might have irrevocably damaged something beautiful. In the shadow of doubt, both Jean and Billy were forced to confront their pasts and the secrets that lay buried there. The path forward was unclear, but one thing was certain: their lives had changed in a way neither could have anticipated. The week following their conversation felt like an eternity. The university, once a place of vibrant discussion and learning for Jean and Billy, now seemed to echo with the weight of their unspoken fears. Jean found herself drifting through her days, her thoughts consumed by the bombshell Billy had dropped. Meanwhile, Billy struggled with the implications of his past actions, questioning the ethics of his relationship with Jean. Finally, unable to bear the weight of uncertainty any longer, Billy reached out to Jean again. Jean, can we meet? I think we need to find a way to deal with this, together. Jean agreed, and they met in a secluded spot by the university library, a place away from curious eyes and ears. Billy took a deep breath before speaking. Jean, I've been thinking a lot about what I said, about the possibility of me being, well, your father. I can't imagine how this feels for you, but I believe there's only one way to move forward. And what's that? Jean asked, her voice steady but her hands betraying her nervousness as they fidgeted with the edge of her jacket. A DNA test, Billy said, the words hanging between them like a verdict waiting to be passed. It's the only way we'll know for sure and can figure out how to deal with whatever the results are. Jean's initial reaction was one of resistance. A DNA test? That sounds so clinical. Can't we just leave things as they are? Does it really matter? It does matter, Jean. Not knowing, living with this doubt, it's not fair to either of us. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think it's necessary, Billy implored, hoping she'd understand the depth of his conviction. Jean sighed, the reality of the situation settling in. Okay, if that's what you think is best, but no matter what that test says, it doesn't change who I am, or who you've been to me. Billy nodded, a mix of relief and apprehension swirling within him. Of course, Jean. Nothing will change the respect and the care I have for you. You're an extraordinary person, no matter what. They arranged for the test in silence, each lost in their thoughts about the implications of the potential outcomes. Days passed as they awaited the results, the tension palpable each time they crossed paths. Jean found herself oscillating between anger, denial, and a curious sense of hope. What if Billy was her father? Was that something she even wanted? The man she had admired as a mentor, felt a deep connection with. Could she accept him in this new, life-altering role? Billy, on his part, was tormented by guilt and a growing sense of responsibility towards Jean. Regardless of the outcome, he knew their relationship would never be the same. He had opened a Pandora's box, one that held the power to either forge a new bond between them or destroy the trust they had built. Finally, the day arrived when the results were ready. They met again, this time in a quiet cafe off campus, a neutral ground where they could face the truth together. As Billy opened the envelope, his hands trembled. Jean watched, her breath held in suspense. They unfolded the paper, and there, in stark, clinical terms, was their answer. Billy looked up at Jean, the weight of the moment etched in his expression. It's negative. I'm not your father, Jean. A myriad of emotions washed over Jean: relief, disappointment, confusion. I don't know what to feel. I'm glad, but also, it's weird. I thought I'd feel more resolved. Billy nodded, understanding. It's a lot to process. But Jean, know this, whatever comes our way, I'll be here. As your professor, your mentor. As a friend. The truth had set them free from one burden, but had also opened a door to new uncertainties. Yet, in that moment, a new chapter in their lives had begun, one where the shadows of doubt had been dispelled, leaving room for a different kind of relationship to grow. With the weight of the DNA test's results now behind them, Jean and Billy found themselves navigating a complex landscape of emotions and newfound realities. The cafe around them buzzed with life, but in their secluded corner, a profound silence lingered as they processed the news. It's a lot to take in. Jean finally broke the silence, her voice a mix of relief and complexity. Part of me is relieved, but there's also this weird sense of disappointment. I don't know why. Billy looked at her, empathy in his eyes. I understand. It's been a rollercoaster, hasn't it? All these possibilities we had to consider, the what-ifs. It's natural to feel a whirlwind of emotions. Jean nodded, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture of contemplation. Yeah, a rollercoaster. But in a way, I'm glad we went through it. It forced me to think about things I've avoided for a long time. About my family, my past, and about us. US Billy echoed, the word hanging between them like a delicate thread. Yeah, US Jean reiterated, her gaze steady. Billy, these past weeks have made me realize how important you've become to me. Not in the way we were afraid of, but as someone I respect deeply, someone I've come to care about a lot. Billy's heart skipped a beat. Jean, I feel the same. I was so caught up in the fear of what might be that I didn't stop to consider the bond we were building. You're an incredible person, Jean. Your strength, your resilience. It's inspired me more than you know. The air around them felt charged with an unspoken understanding, a connection that had deepened through their shared ordeal. Jean took a deep breath, a decision forming in her mind. So where do we go from here? This whole situation has been overwhelming, but it's also brought us closer. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to go back to just being professor and student. Billy reached across the table, his hand tentatively covering hers. We won't go back. We can't. This experience has changed us, Jean. I don't want to lose what we found in each other either, but we need to be careful, navigate this with respect for both our positions. Jean smiled, a sense of warmth spreading through her. I agree. We'll figure it out, together, step by step. As they left the cafe, stepping back into the rhythm of the world around them, Jean and Billy were acutely aware of the fragile nature of their bond. They were embarking on a path fraught with potential complications, yet the foundation of mutual respect and understanding they had built promised a resilience they were only beginning to comprehend. In the days that followed, their relationship evolved within the confines of their newfound understanding. Discussions about literature and life continued, now imbued with a deeper sense of intimacy and trust. They navigated their interactions with an awareness of the boundaries their roles imposed, yet each conversation, each shared glance, spoke of a connection that transcended those limits. The revelation and the reckoning of their fears had led them to a place of mutual acknowledgement. In acknowledging the depth of their bond, Jean and Billy had opened themselves up to the possibilities of a future defined not by societal norms, but by the strength of their connection. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, they faced it not as mentor and mentee, but as equals, partners in the journey of discovery that lay before them. In the weeks that followed, the university campus began to thaw, the first signs of spring mirroring the new phase in Jean and Billy's relationship. Their interactions, once overshadowed by uncertainty, now flourished under the banner of mutual respect and a shared secret that had brought them closer. One crisp morning, as they walked through the campus gardens, Jean broached a subject that had been on her mind. "Billy, do you ever think about how crazy this whole situation has been? I mean, a few months ago we were just professor and student. Now, look at us." Billy smiled, looking around at the budding flowers, a metaphor not lost on him. "I do think about it more often than you'd imagine. It's been a strange journey, but I'm grateful for where it's led us. I've never had a connection like this with anyone before." Jean nodded, her hand brushing against his as they walked. "Me neither. It's weird, but in a good way. I've been thinking a lot about the future lately, about what it might hold for us." "Ah," the future Billy echoed, his tone contemplative. "It's a bit of a daunting thought, isn't it? Especially considering the unusual start we've had." Jean stopped walking, turning to face him. "It is daunting, but it's also exciting. I don't want to ignore what's between us because it started in an unconventional way, I think. I think we have something worth exploring, something beyond the boundaries of professor and student." Billy took her hands in his, their eyes locking. "Jean, I felt the same way. I was afraid to admit it, even to myself, because I wanted to protect us from any backlash. But you're right. We have something special, and I don't want to hide from it anymore." "So, what do we do?" Jean asked, a mix of nervousness and anticipation in her voice. "Do we just dive into this? See where it goes?" "I think we take it one step at a time," Billy replied, squeezing her hands gently. "We're in uncharted territory, but that doesn't mean we can't navigate it together. We'll be open and honest with each other and ourselves, and whatever challenges come our way, we'll face them as a team." Jean's smile was all the answer Billy needed. They resumed their walk, the uncertainty of the future less daunting with the knowledge that they would face it together. As the semester drew to a close, Jean and Billy began to openly acknowledge their relationship within the confines of ethical boundaries. Billy ensured their academic interactions remained professional and impartial, while their personal relationship bloomed away from the prying eyes of the university. Their connection became a source of strength and inspiration, a testament to the unpredictable paths love can take. Friends and colleagues started to notice the change in both of them, a certain lightness that hadn't been there before. Jean, once a student struggling to find her place in the world, had grown into a confident young woman, her aspirations and dreams no longer distant fantasies. Billy, who had long resigned himself to a solitary existence focused on academia, found in Jean a partner who challenged and complemented him in ways he'd never imagined. As the final days of the semester passed, Jean and Billy looked to the future with a cautious optimism. They knew the road ahead would not be without its obstacles, but they also knew that together they had the resilience to face whatever came their way. In the quiet moments, as they planned for a summer of shared experiences and opportunities for growth, Jean and Billy realized that their journey was just beginning. A new chapter awaited, one filled with the promise of discovery, growth, and a love that had blossomed from the most unexpected of circumstances. The campus was abuzz with the energy of the end of semester. Students were caught up in a whirlwind of finals and farewells, eagerly anticipating the freedom of summer. Amidst this frenzy, Jean and Billy found solace in each other's company, their relationship a steady ship navigating the tumultuous seas of academic life. One evening, as they sat on a bench overlooking the now familiar gardens, Jean turned to Billy, a reflective look in her eyes. "You know, when I first came here, I never imagined my life would take such an incredible turn. I was so focused on just getting through school, surviving." Billy nodded, taking in her words. "And now?" Now Jean sighed, a content smile playing on her lips. "I feel like I'm truly living, not just surviving. And a lot of that is because of you. But it's also made me think about what comes next. Not just for us, but for me, my career, my dreams." Billy squeezed her hand, encouragement in his gaze. "Jean, whatever you decide to do, I know you'll be amazing. You have this incredible strength, this light that guides you. Don't ever lose that." Jean leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thanks, Billy. That means a lot coming from you. But what about us? Where do we go from here?" Billy looked out over the gardens, considering her question. "We keep going. We face the future together, whatever it may bring. We've navigated through so much already. I have no doubt we'll be able to handle whatever comes next." Jean sat up, her eyes locking with his. "I want to make sure that together is a key part of our future. I don't want us to ever lose this connection we have. It's too important to me." Billy turned to face her, his expression serious. "It's important to me too, Jean. More than I can say. So, let's make a promise right here, right now. We'll keep this connection alive, no matter what. We'll communicate, be honest with each other, and face things together." Jean nodded, a sense of resolve washing over her. "I promise, Billy, to all of that." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the gravity of their promise sink in. Then Jean, with a mischievous glint in her eye, said, "So, Professor, ready to embark on a summer of adventures?" Billy laughed, the sound echoing in the quiet evening. "Absolutely, MS, future world changer. Let's embrace this future with all we've got." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Jean and Billy stood up, their hands intertwined. They walked back towards the campus buildings, their steps light, hearts full. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and opportunities alike. But as they stepped forward together, there was a palpable sense of hope, a belief that whatever the future held, they would face it with the same courage, respect, and love that had brought them to this point. Jean's journey from a struggling student to a confident young woman, ready to take on the world, was a testament to her resilience and strength. And Billy, once a solitary figure lost in the academia, had found in Jean a partner who inspired him to see the world in new, vibrant colours. As the chapter of their unconventional beginning came to a close, Jean and Billy looked towards the future with excitement and determination. They were ready to embrace the challenges and joys of the unknown, secure in the knowledge that together they could navigate any path life set before them. Their story was a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected journeys lead to the most beautiful destinations. And as they walked hand in hand into the gathering dusk, there was no doubt that whatever the future held, Jean and Billy were ready to meet it head-on, together. Several years had passed since Jean and Billy first navigated the uncertain waters of their unique relationship. They now sat together on the very bench where they had made their promise to each other, watching a new generation of students navigate the campus with the same hopeful anticipation they once had. Jean leaned against Billy, her head resting on his shoulder. "You know, looking back, it's almost hard to believe how everything unfolded. If someone had told me back then that we'd be here now, I'd have thought they were crazy." Billy chuckled, wrapping an arm around her. "Life has a funny way of surprising us. We've been through so much, faced so many challenges, yet here we are, stronger than ever." Jean nodded, her mind drifting back to the early days of their relationship. "We've had to fight for this, haven't we? For us. I think that's what makes it all the more special. We didn't just accept the hand we were dealt, we reshaped it together." "Exactly," Billy agreed. "It wasn't easy. There were times when I thought the odds were against us, but we persevered. We learned, we grew, and most importantly, we loved. And that love has been our guiding light." Jean smiled, squeezing his hand. "And now, with my new job and your book coming out, it feels like we're starting another chapter. It's a bit scary but exciting at the same time." Billy looked at her with admiration. Jean, if there's one thing I've learned from you, it's that fear is just a stepping stone to greatness. You've shown me time and again that with courage and determination, anything is possible. Jean blushed at the compliment. And you've taught me the power of patience and understanding. That sometimes the best way to move forward is to take a step back and see the bigger picture. As they sat in contemplative silence, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the campus. It was a moment of quiet reflection, a recognition of the journey they had undertaken and the future that lay ahead. Billy turned to Jean, a spark of mischief in his eyes, so MS future world changer, ready to conquer the world together. Jean laughed, the sound a melody of joy and confidence. With you by my side, always. But let's not forget to enjoy the journey too. After all, it's not just about the destination. Billy nodded, his gaze meeting hers. You're right. It's about the journey, the people we meet, the challenges we overcome, and the love we share. That's what makes life truly remarkable. As they stood up, hand in hand, ready to leave the bench that had witnessed the turning points of their relationship, they knew that their story was far from over. It was a tale of love, resilience, and the unyielding belief in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Their story was a testament to the power of facing the unknown with open hearts and minds. It was a reminder that heroism doesn't always come in grand gestures, but in the quiet strength of choosing love and hope in the face of adversity. Together, Jean and Billy stepped forward into the twilight, their hearts full of anticipation for the adventures that lay ahead. They were ready to embrace whatever the future held, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. Their love was a beacon of light in a sometimes dark world, a symbol of hope for all who dared to dream of a brighter future. Let us know in the comments how this story has inspired you, or share your own experiences of overcoming adversity. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching stories like this one. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest uploads. Your journey through the complexities of the human heart starts now. Remember, your story isn't over yet. It's just a new chapter beginning. Stay strong, stay inspired.